went to a conservancy thing. Not in the sun.
No, it's very sunny.
Yeah, no, I can't do sun.
I'm worried that we won't have things like the Conservancy in a year.
Yeah.
2026 is too late.
Close that window. Lauren.
Well, it says video is unavailable.
Can you just close the window? It will take.
Okay. So, is it 7 o'clock here? And then run it here.
So two good items.
Tracy, you know, called.
Yes, you may have, yeah, she's actually, I remember when she spoke at UNNC,
Oh, right.
the meeting, I was reading what she says,
Not a
public
speaker. Yes. That is correct. Okay. Well, as long as you don't speak, the owl won't go find you. When you speak, the owl finds you. But we have learned, and then I'll call the meeting to order. We were here not last October, but the October before, and they had started decorating. It's a ghost thing hanging in that corner, and it kept blowing in the wind, and the camera kept hearing the rustling. Okay, like here. I think we'll wait 2 minutes because I know we're stuck from this one. Teresa and I were discussing, or I keep discussing, that I've become obsessed with watching the Big Bear Baby eaglets.
Oh, it's nice.
Have you seen them? Oh my God.
I think it's like a very nice thing to counter doom scrolling.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. And okay,
that's just talk.
I know.
There's another way you can do that too, if you go to, oh, actually you didn't, so don't just close it, don't do it, no, just and hover on his picture and go there. There you go.
All right.
So I guess you guys heard the Lakers got sold today.
Yes, we heard you talking, and we did hear, I heard about the Lakers, at least it's not, what do you call that, doom scrolling? It's not doom scrolling. Here we go. Hi.
Hello.
I'll come sit next to you, you can sit,
Yeah, where can we sit?
you can sit here.
Here?
Well, this is a terrible seat, not that it's because it's that me, but because the
Yeah,
camera.
Well, I am gonna nominate.
yeah.
Well, if you talk, you will be on camera, so it's just how it works.
Okay, well, and I'm gonna call this meeting to order. So Michael, do you have a radio on in the back, your background?
Yeah, I do.
Can it be turned off?
Yeah,
There you go. Thank you. Okay, I am calling to order the meeting of UNNC's Planning and Zoning Committee on June 18th. My name is Laura Myers, and I am the co-chair of this committee, and I also serve on the UNNC board as its vice president. What we're going to do is I'll share the agenda, but one of the things on the agenda is we circle around and introduce ourselves and whether or not we are voting stakeholders. So let me grab the agenda first of all and share it to the screen. I know I just did it right. Where'd it go? Okay, so Michael, can you see the agenda on the screen?
I actually had it picked up on the other. Hold on, let me go back to the Zoom. Yes.
Okay, so again, welcome and call to order. Review of UNNC standing rules for committee stakeholder participation. I don't know how pertinent that is exactly tonight, but basically, unlike some neighborhood councils, UNNC appoints chairs and co-chairs to committees, but we do not appoint members. So anyone who's participating in a meeting and who is an actual stakeholder, which has a definition, may not just participate fully, but can make motions, can vote. So what is a stakeholder? It's anyone who, and this is defined by city council, it's anyone who lives, whether they're owners or renters, anyone who lives, works, owns property, attends church, attends school, has a child who attends school, and who otherwise participates through a community-based nonprofit charitable organization within our boundaries. So it's got to be an organization that's within the boundaries. And this is something the city council approved. And so I'm Laura Myers. Again, I am a stakeholder. I live in Angeles Vista.
Hi, everybody. I'm Teresa Masonette. I'm on the board of the UNNC. I represent the West Adams Avenues and I term stakeholder.
Cesar Garcia, stakeholder. I live on Jefferson and 12th,
Area 5.
Area 5.
I'm Cecilia Neiman. I am not a stakeholder. I'm the same.
She's my sister.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, welcome.
Welcome.
And I'm like, oh, maybe she also get involved in my own city. And stuff.
I'm Colleen. I'm a stakeholder because I live in the Jefferson neighborhood.
Okay. Michael?
Michael Kimbrough, I'm a stakeholder and resident and UNNC representative for the Avenues.
Okay, and I see Donna just accidentally disappeared, but she'll come back probably. Donna Jones, who lives here in the Avenues, and we may end up with some other people, I don't know. So reviewing the agenda, we have general public comments, and that's on items not on the agenda. And the second item is maybe we do a vote tonight, or maybe we just discuss this, but a proposed community impact statement regarding a brand new council file where 3 council members have moved to not exactly eliminate all parking requirements, but possibly eliminate all parking requirements citywide. It's requesting that building and safety report back with recommendations about it. It's a little complicated. We'll get into that tonight. And then our next item is item 4. Oops. Possible parks conversion. I just said it's bureaucratically, but we're going to have a discussion on how to maybe find some land that could create more park type land, usage within the part of Jefferson Park that we call Area 5, which really doesn't have any parks. And generally speaking, we don't, we're a park, United Neighborhoods, and actually all of CD10 is park poor compared to other parts of the city, although I would say South LA is park poorer, perhaps even than we are. But again, that's item 4. Follow-up, number 5 is follow-up to any previous cases, if any, ENS and old business. I'm gonna stop the share, say hello to Young. How are you, Young? Well, you're mute, but I think you said you're fine. Hi, and we're gonna move on to general public comments on any item not on the agenda, 1 or 2 minutes per speaker. Does anybody have any general public comments?
Can I have one?
Yes, go ahead.
My next door 3440 West Boulevard was demolished.
Yes.
And I had a really, really traumatic experience for 3 days. I felt like I had earthquakes for 3 days.
Maybe, but not right this minute.
Because
You know what I
the
mean?
house
Just
was
leave-
shaking. Of course, ground was shaking. It was really awful, just about demolishing it. And they did some damage to the fence because that backhoe kind of hit the other side of on my side of the wooden fence and just knocked off some piece of wood. I mean, I just wonder how safe is it to build tall buildings in this shaky ground? I have actually noticed there's some separation of window frame from the wall. I didn't notice before.
Right, Young, I think we had a brief conversation last meeting that we, the neighborhood council, cannot help on this sort of neighbor to neighbor situation. That I understand that there's issues, and there are issues. I mean, I've heard about them, similar situations throughout when people are building these ginormous buildings next to little houses. But it's not something that a neighborhood council can take a role in because it's neighbor to neighbor kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, not so much of that, but in the bigger picture, how safe is it? The whole street is weak, and they set up these huge buildings eventually coming. And I mean, I just think it's not safe for the whole area because my street is really narrow and old.
I
And
understand.
yeah,
Young, have you talked to the neighbors? Maybe everybody on your block should,
yeah.
or maybe could compose a letter and have everybody on the, your block and the block behind,
Yeah,
and send it to the council office.
They had written the council office and
I've talked to different people.
Petition? Oh.
Yeah, before the, I, just for everybody else, I know your neighborhood have written planning department and council district 10 because there's some geological issues long before the permits were even approved, and it just, because it was not a discretionary project, it just went forward. And, I don't really know what,
Yeah, what we can do about it.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, just city-wise, you know what I mean? Not just my block right now, but city-wise, how safe is it in case there's an earthquake? When the tall buildings like this shakes behind, I mean, next to you in the narrow lot, I think it's a really dangerous scenario. I mean, it just scares me. I mean,
Yeah.
even just a demolition took so much out of me. Shaking my other neighbor with the young kids, their house was shaking, she told me. So kids was, I mean, scared. So if that little demolition did so much
Geological.
damage, and I just wonder if the tall buildings are really safe to build on.
Well, I think what the city responded, because your neighbor's an architect, right? Who wrote those letters, and I think the response, whether for good or bad, was we're not worried about it, meaning the city. Michael, you have your hand up?
You're on mute, Michael.
Oh, right. I had muted you, Michael,
I'm
sorry.
sorry. I may have missed a portion of it, but I do remember 2 weeks ago, she came before the board and expressing the same concerns. My
Right.
question is, has she talked directly with building and safety?
Well, her neighbor is an architect, and he did a huge amount of correspondence copying other neighbors, including Young, and copying me. That's the only reason I know this, and to the council district about all of this before the permits were finalized. And the general response was, this is a non-discretionary project, and they simply approved it.
Yeah, but that's beside the point. If she's actually experiencing structural problems with her house, then she can get this documented for some type of insurance claim, perhaps. But
yes, but that, and we talked about this last time.
right,
We can't, as a neighborhood council,
I understand.
that.
Maybe
I want to make it clear to her that coming
Right.
before us is not necessarily going to get her any ground. That going
Right.
directly to building and safety and complaining may get you more traction on this issue.
Sure. And if definitely take photos and document any damage. I don't think we should be having this conversation during general public comment, though.
I agree.
So if we have time at the end of the meeting, we can take it up again.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the
Okay.
time.
All right, so any other general public comment? A few announcements that are not related to planning and zoning. But on Friday, the 27th of June, right here in Benny Potter Park will be the first of the summer's Council District 10 movies and parks. So, but our park is first, and the movie will be Mustafa, the Lion King, the more recent one, because I know there's been more than one. And the next day, over in Kinney Heights, LA 84 is sponsoring Play Day, and the streets will be closed. You have kids, so
Yeah.
it'll be
Be fun.
both of these things.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's right now, it's at the park.
Oh, there you go. Okay, and are any other announcements? We're moving on. Okay, so the next item, I'm gonna bring it back up. There is a motion at City Council. I don't think it's gonna move real fast, because summertime things move slowly, but it's a new motion that would consider removing on a citywide basis off-street parking requirements, or if not removing them, fine tuning them. So I could bring up the whole motion, I probably should, but basically, according to the motion, a UCLA expert contended that based on his research, the developers of new projects are better equipped to determine how much parking their own building should have rather than the city is. They gave some examples, like a gym requires 5 times as much parking than a yoga studio does. Or I should say the city requires 5 times as much parking for a gym than it requires for a yoga studio, which kind of the same function, maybe. And art galleries require twice as much parking than a barber shop would. So what this motion is saying is there doesn't seem to be rhyme or reason. And in addition to that, the new state laws eliminate parking completely in high transit zones. But this is looking at the entire grid of parking requirements. And I'm going to stop this share. I don't know if you need to see the motion. The Los Angeles Alliance of Neighborhood Councils did have a session on this and have a suggested motion. I'm not sure that we would live with their suggestions either, but I'm gonna bring that up next on the share. If I can find it. So Lank is a citywide alliance, but it is dominated by San Fernando Valley members. So for that, so what they're suggesting to neighborhood councils is this community impact statement. It's like, while acknowledging the importance of reducing the cost of housing production, say PS, because every parking space, if it's an underground, is $50,000 or more dollars, and it's above ground, I think it's $25,000. Opposes Council File 250642 unless it's amended to request that the requested feasibility study and cost benefit analysis includes analysis related to establishing community-based parking requirements based on the defined neighborhood characteristics and any additional objective factors that should be taken into account when determining parking minimums. While citywide parking minimums may require excessive parking, but many of which have been removed by AB 2097, this neighborhood council, but again, this is a generic thing, this neighborhood council is not confident that all developers respect the communities or the city's long-term best interest. Further, this council believes that for certain types of uses or developments, such as medical office buildings, parking minimums should continue to be required, except where permitted by state law. So I don't think UNNC would want to be snarky about that sentence about not confident that developers respect the community's long-term best interest, although it's probably true. I don't think we say that. I don't know. So, and as a person who has found herself in the last couple of years going to numerous doctor's appointments, it is really, really necessary when you're driving yourself to have parking. When you're older and need to go to the doctor. But aside, so, but I can see where they were coming from. This is just, I think, to start a conversation. Colleen, so. And do I need to keep this up on the screen?
I think some of that language could be helpful.
Yeah.
So I would agree with you that the snark maybe isn't entirely necessary, but the point might be that just because you're a developer doesn't necessarily mean that you're a planning expert and that you are prioritizing a holistic view of what parking needs are. The proposed language at the bottom on the agenda about cost benefit, that's much too narrow. Cost benefit, it would be an important factor, but there are many other factors. I think actually some of this language, it starts out good, but limiting building safety sort of remit for review to just cost benefit seems much too narrow, but I do agree with the lack of rhyme and reason with respect to the prescriptive requirements, and that maybe needs a more nuanced and view that would be conducted by people who have expertise in these matters. And there are people who have tremendous expertise in the matters of planning and transit orientation and auto intensivity and all of that thing, which may or may not be people who are currently in building safety. Probably not so much, not to be insulting, but just that would be their expertise.
What stood out to me was neighborhood characteristics. And I'll just use the example of, for instance, we know that building a lot that have an 8-unit building has recently been sold, and I think they have a permit to put in 7 stories. If that building was not required to provide parking, those people would then park in this residential area.
Here
in the avenues. So I'm just saying the neighborhood characteristics, that's something important. We should take that. I agree with that, because a neighborhood that is single family, much more kid family, young kids playing in the street, we should not have to take on the additional parking because a developer was not required to put in sufficient parking for their tenants.
In this particular case, I think he actually was putting parking.
Yes, no, I just use as an example why neighborhood characteristics is important. If this were to pass, then maybe not so.
I feel like this conversation about parking is always centered about cars and not about the people. Like people, okay, I'm against cars for the most part. I have to use a car, but I try not to use it. We need better transit options, better movement. And we're like, we're assuming that when a building is constructed, that everybody's gonna have a car. A lot of people, if they don't have a parking, then they probably think it twice before parking a car or getting rid of the car if there's transit available, or there's like bike share available, or things like that are make it easier to move around the city. Because like in a city, you shouldn't need a car. That's the ideal for a city. And we live in a city.
I feel that this motion might, okay, so Michael, I'll call you in a sec. I feel like this motion is addressing many sorts of uses and not just residential.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
But I also feel that it doesn't seem to acknowledge or understand that there's other initiatives going on in the city about requiring X amount of parking that has charging, for electric cars, and Y amount of parking for bicycles. And nobody ever considers, and we try to bring it up at UNNC, where is the drop-off place for Uber, Lyft, ride shares?
Yeah.
So it's much more complicated than even this, which is pretty complicated, this motion, because
It's actually quite narrow.
this motion is very narrow, but the concept of evaluating on a citywide basis the parking requirements by usage which probably is based in the 1946 zoning code, which was the first zoning code. And I think it's worthwhile to evaluate
A big picture.
a big picture. Okay, Mike, I have a
Yeah.
lot more to say, but
No,
Michael,
I understand, and I'm on your side, Laura, but I think we're looking at it maybe from a very narrow point of view. I think what we have to do initially is separate commercial from residential, because the rules don't apply. There's not one rule for each situation. The developers that develop for mixed use and residential are on a different, are using a different agenda to evaluate the situation than a commercial developer.
yeah, but what we've seen here, Michael, is that the developers have come to UNNC recently with mixed use projects, where they're being required, maybe they weren't planning to do mixed use, but they're on a corridor and our CPIOs actually require that it be mixed. So they weren't thinking about that in the first place.
Laura, can you CPI
So CPIO is
condition?
a shorthand for community planning implementation ordinance. So it's an acronym, but it's a kind of overlay that's not exactly a specific plan, but it's kind of a specific plan. And throughout South LA, Southeast LA, and West Adams, Baldwin Hills, Leimert, we were the guinea pigs on this. We have CPIOs on all of our commercial corridors and also on some of our residential neighborhoods. And they're rolling that out as they update the community plans throughout the city. So the CPIOs in other parts of the city may not resemble what ours are like because we were the first. But most of ours are the commercial strips. And
Also,
most
secondly,
of them require mixed use, but we've been seeing mixed use building proposals where they have 3 parking spaces for their retail use.
right.
And actually overparked a little compared to others for their residential use. And it's like, but nobody will be able to be in business if they don't have parking. I mean, they won't be able to attract
Sorry,
customers.
that would be with the assumption that people can't walk to the business. If we're dense enough, people can walk to the business.
Yes, but the way
Or
we're logical about that, right? But how a lot of the realtors representing commercial businesses are trying to think that they're looking at a different kind of census picture. And they're looking at, can the building support it? And can the immediate neighborhood, and then can this be a destination? And they're not thinking necessarily that an immediate neighborhood that could walk or live in a building is sufficient to support all retail uses.
Right.
So we know, we have this experience of where you met with us, where we met at the
Right.
Gramercy Apartments, the retail space that's just to the east of the community room was designed as a restaurant cafe space. It had, it has a drain under, I mean, it was designed, it was designed to be community serving cafe. And they had 0 success over a 2.5-year period of trying to rent it as such. So it ended up being rented out to a great nonprofit, Rediscover Center, but it's not a community serving restaurant. And it's fine, but they just couldn't. Do I have any
And
hands?
did you want to mention about the parking with that?
And then they have parking, only they don't. I mean, in other words, the building has, you know, what a lot of people would now say is like, oh my gosh, it has 60, almost 70 underground spaces, of which 7 or 9 were set aside for the restaurant, and the rest was, they thought was going to be empty.
How many residences, Laura?
Well, they have 64 apartments, but at the time that it was designed and built, they didn't think that the occupants would have cars. It's both senior housing and formerly homeless seniors housing. And so the idea, the idea was that these parking spaces would, in fact, the parking lot would be open for joint shared use by other nearby uses, or if you're meeting at the restaurant and the restaurant. But it turns out there was also a mistake there, because many of the previously homeless seniors were not people sleeping in tents, they were people sleeping in cars.
Everybody had a car.
They have it, everybody has. The place is filled, but because it's so filled with the resident cars, they don't really open it up for the commercial business. I mean, you know, it's just complicated. It's just very complicated.
Cars are complicated.
Question, Laura. Laura, I have
Assumptions
a
are.
question.
Yes,
Studies are-
yes, Michael.
You mentioned that Lank is predominantly a valley organization.
Now, I'm saying it's dominated on a moment to moment basis. If you go to their meetings,
Uh-huh.
the people who go every month in, month out. So the leadership and the usual,
So would it be fair to assume that their viewpoint is valley based, which is entirely different than living where we live?
well, yeah, but it's also nice that they acknowledge that there should be community-based parking requirements and they didn't try to impose, you know, Van Nuys-based parking.
Yeah.
I mean, in other words, yeah, yes, and you know, the valley is a very different place, and
Yeah.
it is hardly as good as what's over here. I mean, and it's a, you know, bigger spread, but again, I think I wasn't at the meeting, so not because I'm not a Valley girl, I just don't go to all their meetings.
And we don't have to use this. I mean, I think
yeah.
Laura presented this so we
The
can see.
base. This
Just
is
Right,
have-
we can, as we have done many times, write our own
Oh,
CIS.
yeah.
So we don't
absolutely.
have to use anything in this.
Right, but I do like the fact that they brought up the objective factors that should be taken into account. I mean, I don't know what they are, but I like that they said there needs to be objective factors. I like what Colleen said, that it shouldn't all be, you know, cost benefit analysis, because that's cost benefit to, well, it's also, what is that? Cost benefit to me and
Cost to
you?
who, benefit to who.
Right.
Can you actually
No,
bring-
it's the cost benefit to the developer, in
Oh, I agree.
my opinion. You know, as you make a decision on providing parking, you have to always consider two factors. A, what it's going to cost you, and B, what's it going to cost you if you don't provide a parking space for a
Right.
number of residents? There's a
Or what's it
difference in
gonna
having.
cost
the
you?
community.
Or what's it gonna cost you if you don't provide enough parking for a business to be successful?
That's right. That's
Even
right.
if they agree to rent, if they may leave, I mean, you know. Anyway, this is the actual motion. So it's interesting because it actually does focus on Donald Shoup. So, you know, what I put in the agenda was kind of a shortened version of this.
I would just like to see what, if you could just go down what she actually,
What the actual,
yeah.
not what the background
Well, I read,
is.
I sent this to you.
I know, I think you did. No, Stephen wrote us an email
Oh,
saying,
that's
oh my God, they're gonna eliminate all parking requirements in the whole city.
Well,
Oh,
Summary in our agenda says this motion requests that building and safety reports back with recommendations regarding the feasibility and a cost benefit analysis of citywide elimination
Yeah,
of
that-
off-street parking requirements for new development and changes of use.
Yes,
And
that was a copy paste.
Yeah.
I don't see that that's a good use of building and safety's time, to be honest, because that's outrageous.
Well, it says Department of City Planning in consultation with the Department of Safety. The parking requirements are building and safeties. The only time planning gets involved is if it's a discretionary item and a conditional use permit, and they may add more parking as a
Right.
condition because of the impacts
The
the
key-
activity might have.
The key phrase here is citywide elimination of off-street parking
Yes, I
requirements.
see that.
So, and I'm just constitutionally, I'm not really largely in favor of broad-based deregulation and deferring to, in this case, developers or profit makers to make decisions that are very broadly impactful to the community at large.
Right, well, one of the things I noted, I said this, length proposal was that, you know, medical. You know, hospitals and medical buildings shouldn't have elimination of parking requirements. And again, that's through personal experience. If I have to drive myself to the doctors, I darn well need a place to park.
Well, so does someone who has to be driven to
Well, yes, of course.
to their appointments, yeah, like,
Not to be confrontational, but I think that requesting a report back is a good use of their time. It addresses the concerns of some of the people who put forth this motion, that people were concerned about parking, elimination of parking. So to ask these two departments to spend some time, and these report backs take a year. I mean, it's not like we're gonna have it in 6 months, unless they put in within 30 days or they put a deadline in there. So to have them explore how this could affect the community, I think is okay.
yeah,
But I do think we should certainly submit a CIS, and that's how it would work. They would look at the community impact statements, they would look at public comments, they would bring it back, they would share it with the committee and then full council, so.
Right.
yeah, I
So,
don't take that as compliment.
Oh, okay. You're like, it's wasting their time,
No,
so.
when I say that, I mean, it's so narrow that you're right, it takes a year to do it. And then they come back and they say whatever they say, and all of the things that, you know, many of us have expressed as bigger, more holistic concerns are not looked at. And so they've spent a lot of time to report back on a very narrow question. And that time is not used to explore more community-based or more holistic
Right.
Options. Does that make sense?
Yes.
and then also, so obviously building and safety does somewhere, and it may not even be buried, have a list of parking requirements by use. I mean,
Right.
I think it's not buried at all. I think it's probably easily found. Michael, what do you think?
And then
That's planning. You go to the planning code to find out that use for parking.
Oh, no, for the parking required for use?
Yes. Yeah, there's,
Does
I
not
don't,
say-
I assume it's planning.
Building.
Well,
and
I
safety
assume it's
probably-
development services desk in the planning department, but building and safety helps staff it.
they may do that, but the guidelines for parking, based on square footage and commercial or residential uses is clearly in the planning, and zoning guide. I
Okay.
can't think of the section, but I have it in my files. You need me
Okay.
to pull it up.
So, I mean, because I only know a few of them. I mean, I know that if you're proposing a new church use, it's one parking space for every 7 seats for 7 feet of pew.
Right.
Yeah.
Commercial uses are typically.
Why I know this one, I
One-
don't know.
one for every-
As a non-stakeholder, I think, you know, with the hopes of the city, I mean, having probably one of the largest, you know, building safety and planning departments, because of the size of the city. But, you know, you would hope that they have the adequate staff to come back and say, well, sure, we'll have a citywide elimination of the off-street parking as it stands today, but with the cost analysis explaining that the developer will have to project if this is the, like the church, you know, exactly to the church, like this is what we projected to be, therefore off-street parking is this. You know, with the margin of errors, and if in 2 years' time that seems to be inadequate, then this would be what has to be corrected. Like you would hope that they provide something to that extent where you know, to your point, like it's not just fully deregulated, but it is more with projections, and if something happens, this is how it.
Yeah, and trial and error, see how it
No,
goes.
no, that's
And
not
like,
the,
what
that's
the
not the way it
developers
works.
did,
That's
like,
not, that's not the way it
like the-
works.
Yeah.
It
Well,
doesn't, it
okay.
doesn't, it doesn't
And
work that way.
That's not the way it works, but here's what I'm gonna say. Cause I'm looking at the time. I don't think we can bring this community impact statement forward to the board on July 10 or whatever. I think that's gonna be the day, cause we have so many other things we already have to do on that agenda, including installing new board. And
Right.
So how about, Laura,
so we should come back.
why don't you come back with a draft, like everything that we.
Well, I was gonna say, I'd love to ask people to kind of in their mind's eye or in their, or bicycle, kind of drive around UNNC and see, you know, what uses do we have that seem to be disconnected from this? I mean, like one of the uses that's very impactful we have a ghost kitchen, it's right on the
Oh,
edge,
that's horrible.
and it's horrible. There's
You know where
no,
that is? Go down
Washington and Normandy.
and Normandy.
What's a ghost
What's
kitchen?
that?
Hold on, Laura,
And
what
then-
makes it
Start-
horrible? You both said horrible. What makes it
Okay.
horrible?
okay,
It's horrible. Oh my God. I
Yeah,
can't-
but what does that mean?
all right, well, let's start with, some people here don't know what a ghost kitchen is
Okay.
here, I'm gonna stop the share.
Yeah.
A ghost kitchen is I can't even stop the share, is a use in a like a warehousey kind of building, but it might have 30 kitchen stations in it. And each of those stations is representing one or more restaurants. So when you order food for delivery online,
They make it there.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, I mean, the goal was that if there was a restaurant that you really liked, say in the valley. It would take too long for DoorDash or Uber Eats to get it, so they rent out spaces with that menu. And they
and
rent
their
it out.
recipes.
And- Right, and they make it here, and then, but what's happening is that
There's
the
no
Uber Eats and the DoorDash and that median, there are 20 cars lined up.
And they're
Sometimes
also
they're double
circling-
parked.
Wait,
Oh.
and they're circling around in the cemetery, because it's right across the street.
It's right there.
But it's just so hard to drive down that little section of
But
Washington.
I'm thinking about that business model. I mean, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I mean, the parking.
And speaking of complicated, that business model does not exist in our codes. And
Right,
there's
I
a
feel like it's more of a violation of,
motion
Yeah.
to define what it is and what it's
Yeah.
required to be. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Because, well, but it's very inconvenient for the community
Yes,
members.
right,
And for people who drive that, like I go downtown to City Hall all the time and I'm always caught, like, okay, I know there are gonna be tons of cars, they're gonna be double parked here and somebody's gonna be speeding through. Someone's gonna be opening their door from the median to then dash across
they're
the
both-
street.
And in the median,
So
they're
they can
facing
get their
both
food.
ways.
Yeah, and they're coming in both ways. See,
Yes, Colin.
And so the impact comes from, there's employees working there to cooking things, and then there's drivers coming to. pick
Coming and going.
things.
yeah. So I don't know about maybe they have parking for the people.
Yeah, we just don't know.
But I know that these are the DoorDash, Uber Eats, the
Delivery guys.
delivery guys who are using that. I had one a few weeks ago. I did see the police handing out tickets to people.
Oh.
So somebody must have called in, but anyway, yeah, so that's a.
I mean, just as an example, so I'm thinking we reconvene, whether it's the July 2nd meeting, if we have a July 2nd meeting, or the mid-July meeting, reconvene with ideas.
Okay.
And from there, I can write a draft.
Okay.
And then we reconvene again, because it's, because
It's
this was,
it's gonna. they
it's a
don't have
brand new
date-
motion.
Yeah, and they don't have a date on it.
Okay, next idea, next thing. Caesar, thank you so much for starting us on this journey.
thank you, no, thank you for listening. Yes.
Well, yes, and then both Teresa and I drove by the cider sites because it turns out that the gas company site is right next to the LA City site. And I don't know which is worse.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just miserable. So for everybody, item 4 is possible parks conversion and usage. This is so generic for city-owned parcels within UNNC. The city owns several vacant or underutilized parcels within the UNNC footprint, such as 3330 West 36th Street. Generally speaking, UNNC's neighborhoods are park poor compared to other parts of LA. And so we're gonna have a discussion. So I have to say that I ended up looking back at a lot of documentation I have from when the Expo line, not the K line, which is the Crenshaw, but the actual Expo line was nearing its completion, and there were multiple community meetings about the last mile in the circle around the intersection of Expo and Crenshaw. There have subsequently been other initiatives around the same last mile idea because of the K line. And then now there's an initiative on the federal level, unless that funding's been yanked, I don't know, to actually do a to actually quote, do something before the Olympics.
Never
But-
happened.
Well, I have to say, it has never happened. I mean, in other words, it is true that nothing has ever happened. One of the things in the big report, going back to the Expo line, was the observation that the residential neighborhoods north of 36th Street, there needs to be some sort of greenbelt passageway
Yeah.
through from 36 to Expo to help get to the train. So it's not exactly what you started your conversation with.
It would be lovely if that happened.
Right. And as well, on the south side, there's a very wide alley that's actually a street alley called Exposition Place.
Mhm.
And it's miserably no trees, no sidewalks. I mean, it looks like an alley, but it's very wide. And there's been townhomes now, and there's residences at least. And again, that's the half people would walk or bike to get to Expo, and it's miserable. So in the report, it also said, I'm reminded, and that should be greened up in trees. That's not parks. But what I wanted, I did spend a whole lot of I was supposed to be working time. Pulling up, let's see, now I've got to go back to Zoom. I have an overhead view of what you were talking about. So I wrote on it. So can you see this?
Yeah.
Yes, where is that? Where are we?
So you see, so the one that says Gen Sid is General Service. Well, I didn't know if I could write the whole thing. I'm like using.
Yeah.
So City of LA is, this is your 3320.
Yeah, that's the green trucks are.
Right.
Green,
Yellow truck. And then where I have the question mark, that this is a different lot, but it's also city owned, and I'm not sure what it is.
Can you just orient us, because I my.
Yeah, I'm lost.
I'm sorry.
Make it larger, Laura.
Yeah, what the streets are that we're looking at.
So, Crenshaw is over here. You just hit the square, Laura.
So the East-West Street is Expo, oh, it's 36.
Yes, Crenshaw is here.
Yep.
And Crenshaw going south, and West Angeles Church, the big church is right there. The big church, then they have a building, and then they have a parking lot. And then I think this is the next one, right?
Yeah, this is right behind,
So this is going
this right
east.
behind the east. Where it says General Services is just east of the West Angeles Community Center, new building.
So this is the super block between 36 and Expo.
And Expo,
that
yeah, I'm gonna
change-
show you another image. This is
Yes.
what I,
Yeah.
I have more than one overview,
That was right.
On this side.
right?
Of the picture and then 36,
Right.
like a big block.
Right, so I'm gonna show you some more images, I just wanna get through it. So I'm not sure what this building where I have a question mark is. It has its own little driveway, I don't know if you can see. I'm
Yeah.
doing it, which is separate, this is the sort of gray. Plastic, and it's
Mhm.
graffitied, there seems to be a little lawn in there.
Yeah, I see people going in there, so it must.
Well, somebody's, I mean,
use-
there's
it's in
something, and
yeah.
it's city, and it might be the annex, for the South LA dogs, animal services, it might be where they have the overflow of dogs.
Oh.
But it used to, and I think this is what they call the annex, because this, former shelter, is just over here.
On 11th Avenue.
Yes, and then this whole thing with all of these vehicles is owned by the gas company. And so what looks in the photo is the vacant lot, that is where they park all their personal cars during the day. And then they walk over here, I guess, and grab the
Yeah.
gas company
What are you-
vehicles.
where's the space?
And
Space, yeah, I mean, they don't have.
no, I was there today, I saw it, this is the personal cars.
Okay.
And then,
Right?
yeah, I'm trying to, the next picture, and I'm trying to move up, trying to see if I can. So this is the city lot, now we're looking the opposite direction, Expo's up at the top, 36th Street is at the bottom. I have this is city, but I have no clue what this complex is.
Yeah, what I see in there is a bunch of like cop cars come and take their breaks, I'm assuming, because there's like a little gym, like if you look through, there's like a gym and then there's like police cars parked in there.
Could it be a repair facility?
I don't know, it's just
But again, we're
police
looking at the opposite view, right?
yeah.
So, and just, I actually did measurements on Zenith, so back to where my cursor is with the mystery building and the little bit of lawn. It's has a 25-foot setback and an 87 feet across. I'm only measuring because it's like, could this be parked? Couldn't there, instead of having a fence there, have just fence it there? And- yeah, but that's not a big space, I'm just saying, I'm just saying, it's just, okay, can I? No, I can't.
Who's gonna pay for this, Laura?
Oh, we're not even gonna worry about that right now. No, I'm serious. It's sort of like, I was telling Teresa, because I'm sure she was sort of thinking the same thing earlier today. How do I go? Stopping this share because I'm gonna have to start over. We have one of our stakeholders about 10 years ago said, same as Michael also, said, we should shut down the oil and gas drilling site at 4th and Washington. And no one thought it could happen. And you know what? It's happened.
Yeah.
And housing is being built. So
Yeah.
you gotta have a dream. It may not end up the way you thought. But
It's gotta start somewhere. Yeah.
right.
Underutilize it is, and then, I mean, it could easily be a massive building park.
So where was it? I was gonna pull up this one. So so again, the city can't steal land from the gas company, or can it?
Or can
Or could you just have a nice conversation?
Or can we just have a conversation with them, like, can you sell it?
Okay, so, but I pulled up the wrong photo. This is hard, you guys,
Oh,
getting the right photo.
Oh, 100%.
This is
Oh,
what
you
I
can
want.
definitely have conversations. You wanna have some tax write-offs, you know, yeah. There's
Okay,
half the lot.
so the lot you weren't talking about is the gas company lot. So, and that's this whole thing. So the gas company lot is 3.7 acres. The city lot is 2.7 acres. And the other thing I notice is this little building here. I mean, the exposition site is even more nasty than the 36th Street side. They've got a bunch of, the gas company has a bunch of crap stored in view on Expo, which is, no matter what else is true, against the law.
Or like you're supposed to store it enclosed.
Well, you're not supposed to be able to see a pile of junk.
Uh,
And then this building, this teeny little building, has a smokestack, and it's like, what?
What are they burning in there?
And that's the city side.
Okay.
So it's like, so I'm feeling like there's a lot of noxious use here, but what I did notice today, because I was just actually parked under this tree at 3
Oh,
o'clock.
you found a tree?
There's a tree, no,
There's 3 right.
it's right there. And it was only because I got a phone call, so I just stopped and parked under the tree, but it was 3 o'clock, and then basically what was happening is there's this huge line of personal cars leaving work and trucks coming in and parking, so it was obviously end of day. But it doesn't, I mean, it just feels like if there was a way to convince some combination of those two entities to carve a portion of the front off.
I would like to know,
Yes.
Laura, if you were to walk from here to here, how far is it from here to the Expo line?
Stuff that shortcut. It
It would be a shortcut for everyone living here
Everybody.
instead of having to walk and then go across, but I'm just wondering. When you got across, what's the sidewalk like? I mean, I think there's a bike path there. Yeah.
It's a bike lane,
Bike.
but it's not, I mean, it's not class 1.
Yeah.
I know that,
It's just like kind of a joke.
I use it all the time.
yeah, but there was somebody, Paul, whose last name I can't think of, a former board member, used to ride his bike along there. Okay, yes.
Well,
So
he
he-
probably still does, and John Arnold certainly rides his bike.
So there is a path, if we were to
Well,
get,
I don't know where the path is.
Oh, there's no path.
It's just.
no, not.
Oh,
expo or sidewalk, you said you could like activity to it.
Yes.
So if you wanted to go, so this, see the blue dot there? That I'm up, I pulled up, oh, I didn't share it, wait a minute. Oh, yes, I have.
Can you see that, Michael? The
What blue
Zemus?
dot? It's a really small on my screen.
Yes, but can you see, we're on Zemus, can you see that we're on Zemus?
No, it's just a photograph for me, and it's
Oh, okay,
Okay.
I know what I have to do, sorry, let me do it.
and I'm having trouble getting orientated, I guess, to where
Yeah,
we
that-
are. I can't.
That's okay,
I can't
but-
picture it.
all right, well, now, do you
Okay,
see?
now we're on Zemus. Yes.
Okay, so we've been talking about this pink lot. Can you see me making a little
Yes.
circle?
Yes.
So see this line? The smokestack building is here where I've got that little X right now. I mean, the little plus mark. And that was a little graffiti covered entrance. And then this is where right here, thereabouts, that this line is, there's two parcels. But the building that I said is a mystery is right here. The other general service buildings are here. This belongs to the church, I think. This where you see the dotted lines.
So if
And
you
then-
go to the left, Laura, where's Angela's corner?
Right there,
Right
right
there.
here.
Where?
See my arrow?
Uh-huh. That's okay.
There.
So the subway
So-
station is just to the bottom left.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Okay. I'm good now.
Right.
I'm good.
Okay. So this is, see, this is what I was trying to avoid.
Just the measure.
No, it's because-
Interstate.
I know. So what I'm trying to do, your question was, if you were on 12th, right?
Right.
And you wanted to cut across. So this is a measuring tool.
Can you do that? Is there a path of travel there?
No,
No,
we're
that's
talking
what we're
about,
talking
could there
about.
be?
In our dreams. and
In our dreams.
Wake up,
This is-
everybody.
I'd be able to dream it.
Okay, so just to cut across is 434 feet. And then to keep walking. I have to keep clicking. Now we're at 1,389 feet, but you have to come here, right?
So it's like,
Depends if this, where's,
like 2,000,
About
Well,
1,500.
well, about
Oh,
1,500.
1,500, but plus the 400.
Oh,
to come
No,
across.
no, it's been added.
Oh, it's added.
It's
Oh,
adding
Oh, I
up.
don't see it.
Zemus has changed, yeah.
I hear.
So it's a measure,
A quarter of a mile?
Wow.
well, it's certainly within the first last mile.
No,
Yeah.
most definitely,
Right.
most definitely.
Well, and
What do
it's
you
not
mean by that first last mile? You've used that term several times.
the idea, the concept of first last mile for transit centers, for stations in particular, is how do you create pedestrian friendly, green shaded, so people will walk and take the train? Maybe there's, I mean, it's what are the amenities in the first, in the mile radius of a metro station?
Oh, okay. Now,
Yeah,
don't
they
we
call
have,
it first last mile because you're getting on and off the train.
but
And
don't,
those
don't,
amenities could include places to park your bicycle or.
okay, but don't we essentially have that along Crenshaw once
No,
you
not
leave the
yet.
public? Well, we have a tree-lined street directly in front of Angela's church that leads from the parking structure.
Those are the only trees, and just so you know, on the most recent federal thing, they were talking about replacing those trees. So one of the things that the UNNC put in our letter of comment was, why don't you consider planting new trees here and there, and not replacing existing trees, because everywhere around doesn't have trees.
So, and that's a very nice amenity for those of us, and I have been one of those people who parks in that parking structure.
right.
Train, but the concept of the first last mile is how to make it possible that you don't have to drive to the station, but
Right.
that you can walk,
Ride your
bike,
bike.
scooter,
Mhm.
other form of active transportation that doesn't involve an automobile for that first and last mile.
So here's a question for everybody. Why can't we incorporate this thinking into the development around Crenshaw Crossing?
Well, why do you think we haven't been trying to do that for years?
Oh, Well, it sounds like it's a new idea based on
Well,
this.
it is, no, I mean, we've been not, it's not new, but again, we meet this resistance where. Well, how many trees were they supposed to plant?
800.
A huge number
Yeah.
of trees, but then it was like, well, can you?
150 on site,
Right,
and then the remaining trees.
but they were trying just to squeeze them in real close instead of viewing it as a larger project.
Because it was viewed as a box checking exercise.
Exactly, for the, right. And, because I can't tell you how many times we've talked about UNNC Exposition Place. I'm sorry, we haven't been focusing on
that's fine.
36, but remember what we did for. Here, I've got to get out of the red. We did. When the guy was developing this building, the developer, same person who developed the dairy, I'm forgetting his name. With the dairy is this blue
Sweet
person.
Greens.
The Sweet Greens site, I don't know if Sweet Greens ever moved in.
They did.
They did move in.
Are they there now?
Oh, well,
I didn't know.
cool. But the developer also developed
Oh, yeah.
this site, and we asked him to, and he said, I love trees, I'm a tree hugger.
Eh,
No, I mean, you should, if you had met him, you would even.
I know, I bet he said that because he wanted to develop something.
Yeah, but if you had ever met him, you would, I mean, his girlfriend owned a yoga studio, I mean, he's very wealthy, but he's kind of hippie too. I'm just saying. Anyway, but we asked him to plant trees on the other side of 10th or on 36 or on Expo, and he said, no, it's not my site.
Right.
I don't know them that much.
Yeah. It's like, yeah,
Only within my house.
right,
Only for my employees.
you know, so.
The opposite of
But
NIMBY.
we, I mean, we did try and put him in contact. I mean, he happened to be at our meeting. We had more than one thing on the agenda, so we happened to have the new, I mean, it's built now, but the proposed community building for West Angeles on the same agenda as we had him for 10th Avenue. So it's like, can you talk to each other? Maybe you can make a contribution to the church because they don't have, but I don't see any.
There's
Any new
nothing-
trees.
there's none
No.
in that area, no.
So anyway, I think even though it seems that Council District 10 may have already said.
Yeah, can I talk to you about it? Cause I feel like I found a motion to make a park, and the park where they're planning on doing this is next to the Baldwin Hills steps, the exercise steps that people go to.
It's Culver City.
That it next to Culver City. It's still CD 10. I'm like, but Culver City doesn't need more parks. It's like they're thinking of building the park over there. It's like exactly. So they're proposing the park over there. And it's still great. Hey, more parks the better.
Yep.
But we still need a park in our neighborhood.
Right, so you're the one with some, now I should share the insight. So apparently. Jeff thinks he said at our board meeting, but I think he didn't say it at the board meeting.
We didn't.
That the specific lot that you had identified is so well in use and it's really needed for all, it's vehicle parking and blah, 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 blah,
Right.
blah. And that it wouldn't be feasible. I'm thinking. It's a big lot.
Right,
If we can get some of it,
right.
make.
And I also found another yard, which is just east of that, which is it's 2801 West Exposition Boulevard. It's another city lot, and it's also this is more specific than that general services for the Department of Transportation. It's still a lot.
2801?
2801 West Exposition Boulevard. And they can combine them somehow. It would be ideal. That's
2801.
I have a question. It just
Sure.
occurred to me that the city is emphasizing the downsizing of gas appliances and the use of gas utilities in the city, yes?
Oh, yes.
So why not emphasize the downsizing of the site to which it's tied to, which is the gas company?
The city doesn't own that site. That is owned by the gas company, which is a private.
Entity.
Have you guys ever really had a competition with a private entity?
No, well, this is our first conversation.
Because it is possible, like, I mean, I have had discussions, I work for a corporation and it's large and I have lots of money, I'm just an employee, but discussions with the city about things, you know, the
Make it win.
they're very open to speaking to the city. I mean, most corporations that that would take, you know, the city that I do business in very seriously. You wanna talk to me? Oh, you know, I have no doubt that to the very least, they would have an initial discussion, say, what is it that I can help you with?
You're right, I can try to talk to them. I have been talking to like nonprofits, and a nonprofit that's very interested in working on this is the Los Angeles Neighborhood and Land Trust.
Lennon,
Yeah,
yeah,
uh,
you know, they're very successful at fundraising.
yeah,
Although they have a $10 million goal at Jefferson and Budlong, and that's gonna be
yeah.
interesting, I think.
Yeah, so they're interested, and they said they're for the Olympics, they have a lot of funding projects are happening right now. And especially close to USC, she asked me, is like, is this close to USC? I was like, yeah.
Not that far.
Not far. Like, how close is close? I don't know.
It's close, I mean.
Yeah.
It's close if they're, yeah, I mean.
Mhm.
you
Yeah.
can't answer too far.
I say yeah.
Yeah.
And I also talked to another nonprofit called the Trust for Public Land.
Mhm.
We're gonna have a walk next Wednesday. I don't know
Awesome.
what's gonna happen.
Look at you doing things.
No, we gotta talk to people, and I guess I'm like, why didn't I think about the gas?
Having to them, well, I think having maybe, like, not just you perhaps, but like having, you know, this council, you know, sort of together.
Yeah.
So that the name is who, you know, this is what we want, yeah.
So,
Yeah.
you know, it's just like.
Well, and the gas company side,
Research.
I mean, when I'm looking at the, you know, Google Street View maps, but then you can look overhead,
Right,
going back all the way to 2008. It does feel like it's really underused, even though today I saw that parking on the 36th Street side was definitely filled with personal cars leaving and
right,
stuff. But the park that's on the expo side just feels to be filled with junk.
Yeah.
I mean, it
it can
does
be
feel like,
reorganized.
yeah, it feels like, couldn't you just move
Mhm.
some of the parking?
Mhm.
I mean, the fact is, your employees work near a train stop.
Right.
Do they all have to drive?
Right.
Can you provide
A benefit.
an
That's it.
incentive to them to take the train, buy the, you know, blah, 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 so that they're not all bringing individual cars? Can you do some carpooling? But also, can you just shift it
Make it channel.
so that there maybe could be at the frontage on 36, a park let.
Mhm.
I mean, maybe not a big,
Mhm.
Right,
Yeah, it could be a long part, you know, and that's fine. Yeah.
yeah,
you know, and I will say, and Teresa, you participated in this. We had a nice, it's not perfect, but we had a nice win, you know, community
They do it.
and corporation win, I guess, on the routes at Vermont and Adams. On the Menlo side, they are now re-landscaping 25 feet. It's not a park, it's just gonna be landscaped.
it's a shade, it's.
And they're putting in native trees, coastline oaks, those are native trees.
That's awesome.
Right, and there, you know, it helped that in 1996. Back in the day, there was a CRA transfer of land that did say 25 feet. That nobody had ever acknowledged.
Right.
I mean, it helped, but with the way the city is these days, it wouldn't have been much help if Ralph's Corporation didn't think in
Right.
the end it was a good idea. Because if they had fought it. Because they wanted to expand their parking. And instead, they're not expanding the parking lot, they're doing that, and they're also building a solar
Canopy.
canopy that will be a car charger.
If you see it from the gas company perspective, I mean, it can be like, fine, they don't give it to the city. If you wanna continue to own the land, then create for your employees in the community nearby you to use outdoor space for their lunch hour, they can come outside.
Like there's, oh.
Different discussions that can be happening.
Yeah, because I also don't know what happens in those buildings.
Yeah.
I mean, it looks like the parking is for people going
There's
places,
a good one.
but there's buildings on that lot too, and I'm not really
Yeah, they gotta have
sure what's happening.
some
It has to be.
coordination, headquarters, whatever it is.
Like I mentioned, here, different thoughts that we have that can happen, like we are a neighborhood council, this spot. We see your law, we see it's underutilized, can you work with us on something?
Offset their CO2.
Yeah, like if you donate, you have a tax write-off, you know, or you
Yeah.
can do it yourself and then let us. Let us use it, let the community use it with your employees.
Yeah, would it, okay, so the next thing that I was wondering is, would it be productive to go to city council and ask what we could do, cause I feel like.
I think, what do I think? What do you think?
Do you feel you've been unsuccessful working with the council district?
I've never been to, or like the.
This is neighborhood council, but like working with Jeff
I don't
Cam.
think he
Oh,
has.
yeah, I emailed him like 3-4 times, he never emailed me back.
And he said to me that he did email him back, but I'm guessing you're right. It's like.
And have you had an opportunity?
It's very well meaning.
Okay, yeah, yeah, no, I know, I saw him at the police,
What about
whatever it was, the watch. Yeah.
the deputy planner for CD10, Hakeem Martinez?
Oh,
Hakeem, I talked
Hakeem.
to. Someone from CD10 emailed me back saying that I should talk to Jeff, so I'm like, hey Jeff,
Yeah.
Hakeem told me to talk to you,
Jeff
but then
is
no.
the deputy of constituent services, he
Yeah.
works directly, but Hakeem is the
He's for
deputy
our-
of. For our area, but Hakeem is the planner for CD.
right. And I will say Andrew is the person who's probably most familiar with surplus lots, because when Andrew Westall,
He is deputy chief of staff.
right, and the economic development, and he oversees.
Yeah.
But I was gonna say, there was a moment in time when they were eyeing the former 11th Avenue shelter, not knowing, you know, for potential demolition of economic housing, not realizing that it wasn't an abandoned building, because in fact, it was a Jefferson Park animal
Yeah,
research. No, I know, there's like 3 or 4, well, but they were granted, it was a matter of, it was Andrew who had to deal with.
okay,
to-
so are you
to
asking
get-
me
So
instead of
maybe, yeah,
emailing Jeff, cause I feel like I just go to
maybe just, it'd be.
Uh,
Still going to city council.
okay,
Regularly,
okay,
so when you introduce yourself.
yeah, it's like, hey, you remember me?
Right, well, first of all, show up,
Send it to you so that he gets your face.
Yeah.
And then I'll send it to you again, so it's
Okay.
right at the top of your
Right.
inbox. And then I'd love to schedule.
right, the entire staff will be out for the movie.
Yeah.
So I'd say,
Go to the movie.
well, I'd say come help at the UNNC table, so you look official. And we'll, you know,
Yes,
I am with the one with the neighborhood council.
no, but I mean, in other words, part of it is
FaceTime.
FaceTime.
FaceTime, okay,
Yeah,
okay,
and then, but I also think. I think we need to get a I think that's what we're doing, researching, maybe talking initially to the gas company, but getting a letter from UNNC about what it is we think we wanna do, but we don't know yet what we think we wanna do.
okay,
Other than we wanna green it up. I mean, in other words, the reason I was looking at this first mile, last mile is just because it's been so discussed.
It's a good hook.
It's a good hook.
You
You know, it's a good hook. You know, y'all have said this was necessary, but nobody's done nothing.
yeah, you're right.
So maybe we're help you help.
Okay.
So maybe a first draft.
So we like narrowing it down to like first mile, last mile, and then focus on this 30, what is our address? 3330,
Well, 3330 is the second city lot, because again, it turns out there's 2. 3300 is a weird,
oh, okay,
it has a little small entrance and above wide, but the building actually goes across that triangle, so I don't understand.
Yeah.
That's why I put a question.
Right.
oh, I understand that,
It's like, what is that? building.
So maybe maybe try to draft together of what it is that this neighborhood council would like to do and then pass it around for edits, for thoughts.
Right,
Okay,
And then try to start there and meeting people, FaceTiming,
Right.
coming.
but to officially develop a letter to take for the neighborhood council itself to vote on, it would have to come back here.
okay,
Or, you know, say, this is what we want, but obviously, we're all working in the background.
Okay.
And I say, you know, Michael, I'm not gonna worry about money, because we know we
But it has
not.
some funding sources that.
No,
are being
and we're certainly hoping, and I've identified one as well from the feds, I was just hoping they stick. Because we know the city has no money.
Right.
Right.
Cause I'm saying, why don't you have a parking structure, when I didn't realize that that was the gas company lot, when I saw all those sedans, it's
Mhm.
like. Structure, but it's the gas company, it's not, the city lot is big yellow vehicles, so the structure would be a viable thing. But, you know. Something, just something. And I wouldn't want to demolish the annex if it's still being used to house doggy. But I'm not sure that they're using it, because the actual city shelter's all the way down
Yeah.
Chesterfield
Alex?
Square.
Excuse me.
what do you do here?
Yeah, right, yeah, is anybody there? Cause it kind of, when I was there today looking, it's like,
Yeah,
is anybody even there? It looks kind of
it
abandoned.
looks kind of abandoned, like a
Yeah,
bunch of
that's
grass area.
Which
in
is
front
why I'm thinking it was the annex and it's not in use.
of it. Okay,
So, okay, is there any, item 5 we can quickly, if anything, any previous, follow-up to any previous cases, ENS, old business? Do we have an answer on the liquor store thing yet?
I checked about a week ago, within the last week, I checked, Zenas, and I didn't see anything.
thanks. My wife is signing it.
Okay, and saw somebody out there.
I was wondering, just ask if anybody, I think I heard someone mention at a meeting a few months ago that there was maybe a conditional use permit, or there had been one granted for the Extreme Museum. as a
Not yet,
access.
that's what I was gonna say, they're asking me to write the letter and I'm trying to find out why it's on hold, to see if there's a problem at the city level before I write the letter.
So.
So it hasn't yet been granted,
There's this.
Yeah.
It's,
but
it's
we
quite actively used as we
consider already.
Yeah. Oh, yeah,
Okay.
has been since it opened.
Okay. All right, but we've already voted to say yes.
But it's in use,
Well,
Oh, it's being, the museum,
yes,
oh,
that's all it's used for.
as for the museum or for the parties?
well, events,
Oh, well,
Yeah.
all right, but we've already voted.
I'd love
To
to know
support
what
the,
that-
yeah, I don't know, but they're still asking me to write the letter. I mean, I have written the letter. I'm just trying to get an answer from city planning as to
Yeah.
what's going on. Well, I'm trying to figure out that might be what's going on. That somebody's complained that it's been in use already and they haven't issued a. Okay, but that won't change what our vote was.
Just curious.
And. No, we do have a couple of other pending things, so I'm just. Is anyone around on July 2nd? I mean, is that a good day for a meeting, or do we wanna skip it?
let's skip, because that is July 4th week.
Yeah,
And, I mean, unless.
I'm good with skipping it,
Yeah, we should just have one meeting that in July,
that's
that
fine,
the second meeting, the second.
okay, whatever it is, third Wednesday, second meeting of the month. Okay, we are adjourned.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.